So let's start talking about the book. How did you get the idea to do the whole Santa Fe thing?
Well, my parents actually vacationed to Santa Fe several years ago, and they loved it. They went to Taos in Santa Fe, and I had done some research on it prior to that for another novel and ended up not using it. And I thought, it's a very artsy city, and it just fit what I was going for. So it's still always so neat to hear your voice because you're my characters now. For you, as a narrator, how do you choose which books you want to narrate?
Well, it's how many Twitter followers they have. No, I'm just kidding.
I would fail. Fail. With Twitter.
with Twitter. I look for a book I think I will enjoy because I honestly won't do as good of a job on a book I don't like. Or actually, even on a book that's not as well written. That might sound, you might not think about that, but the better a book is written, for me, I think the easier it is to give it a voice because the easier it is for me to envision it. So if you have characters that are well developed, that are very real, that come off the page at you, me as the actor, I can really get into them, and I know who they are, and I understand them, and the more clearly a scene is painted, the cars, and the more I can get myself into that scene, and I can really feel what that would be like, and give that to the characters in the book.
Well, I was going to ask you too, what is your process? Like once you do receive the text, what do you do? Where do you go from there? I know you would have to do a read through at least to know where the story's going, but I mean, how do you separate out the characters or do you just read through? How do you do it?
I think it would be impossible to try and do all the characters at once. Like if I was to read through and just do Rory or just do Caroline, that would be an editing nightmare. And production nightmare. Most of my process, it happens beforehand. I will read the whole book through, and I don't just read it for pleasure. I read it and I keep a notebook next to me, and I write down each main character's name and even some sub-characters, and I will write down all of their personality traits and any major descriptions of them that happen throughout the book. And from that, I will form a personality for them and what that would sound like. And so anyway, yeah, I keep a detailed list of that, and then I come up with the voices, and then I just start reading.
With Beautiful Fury, did you find one character harder to voice than any of the others, or which was your favorite one to voice? Or
I have Rory, hands down, was my favorite.
Yeah.
I loved Rory. Oh my gosh, probably because we have the most. I mean, like we have, short. I can imagine myself with purple hair. Yeah, I think Rory was a ton of fun, and I think the most difficult was
Finn.
Finn, thank you. He was just, because he is hard to get to know. At first I was like, gruff, and I'm not like that. And I think always the people that are most different from me are the hardest to get a voice on, a personality. So he was definitely a little bit of a challenge, but he was a challenge for Caroline too. So I think it's fair. Did you have one character that you felt like was the most difficult to accurately portray, or I don't know, that you wanted to do justice to the most?
I definitely paid more attention to Finn's character as the story started unfolding, mainly due to when I first started writing. I just had in my mind, I'm kind of a pantser. I kind of fly by the seat of my pants when I start writing. And then as the story develops, I keep bullet points of what I want to unfold or those kind of things. But with Finn, I knew I wanted a glass artist who was kind of reclusive and a hermit, but the anxiety portion of him and his personality didn't come into play until I sat down and really started developing that scene at the farmer's market. And I
Oh
thought,
yeah.
oh, that's where, yes, I'm going to do that. And so also delicately handling that, because that is a struggle for some people, is social anxiety or anxiety in general, and making sure that his character developed in a way that the readers could understand him better, and making sure that he remained likable enough
Yes. I thought you did a good
that the
job with that.
reader would want Caroline to keep pursuing him and keep trying to convince him to showcase at her gallery. So he was probably the one. I wouldn't say he was hard. He was just the one I probably paid closest attention to as far as making sure I maintained his likability.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but Rory was one of the easiest ones in that book. I had in my mind her from the beginning. I write I'm a younger sister, so I kind of like her being kind of pestering a little bit to her older brother. And so factoring those aspects, those real sibling relationships that she can pester him and get through to him in a way no one else can, but he would also do anything in the world for her,
Yeah.
So that was a fun relationship to write.
I really liked their relationship. And I thought actually, when I first started reading it, I remember thinking, I don't like this guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's his problem? Like, man, how does Caroline fall for him? And as we went on, I was like, oh, okay. I guess I like him. And, and I loved, it's funny that you found him hardest to write and I found him hardest to voice. Or not hardest, but, we paid the most attention.
More challenging.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, what do you dislike most about being an author?
The marketing aspect is I enjoy marketing. I dislike the time consumption it takes. It takes so much time away from writing.
Yeah.
So you have to find that balance. But yeah, that's probably everything else I enjoy. I love starting a new manuscript. I love the research behind a manuscript. I don't know. I love a blank screen. I love starting a new manuscript. I love coming up with new characters. I love the research aspect. And I love that I can literally be anywhere, and I love to people watch, and I can be anywhere and see something and think, gosh, that's so neat. And then I'll go home and research it.
That's really fun.
And that's kind of how the glass blowing event happened.
Yes.
But so I sat on that research for about 9 years before I used it.
Oh my gosh.
So, and it was just from a random, I was in San Francisco in 2009. I remember why I was there. I was there for a friend's wedding. And I was just walking, and I couldn't tell you where. I couldn't tell you who the artist was, which gallery or anything. But there was a glass blower doing, like, I guess a presentation, because there were several people standing around him and watching. And I was just passing by, and I saw through the window, and I kind of watched for a second, and I thought, gosh, that is so neat. And it stuck with me the rest of the trip. So when I got home, I researched everything I could about glass blowing, and then just found it super interesting, and reserved that for, at the time I was still just writing children's books, and novels weren't on my radar, but I had in my mind one day, and so I kept that research, and now I have like a file drawer that's just all these different little file folders of all this research I've done, and I'll go through there every now and then. I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? I need to use this one.
That's so cool.
So, and I immediately knew I wanted to do a glass blower. For some reason, when I had the Beautiful Fury idea, I was like, because at first I just wanted an artist. And I had talked to a couple of artists just to ask them questions on, how do you go about being commissioned for an art show? And, why would you be hesitant to accept one? Those kind of things. And then as we started going on, I thought, no, I don't want it to be a painter. I don't want it to be, and then I started thinking, oh, I have the glass blower and glass blowing research. So I looked over it again. I'm like, I could work with this. This could be fun.
Well, and then he can have really big muscles too, win-win.
Yeah.
The Beautiful Fury. When that whole process and when he made it, I was like, at that point, I mean, I've been to Renaissance fairs and I've watched art, glass artists working, but they would always be blowing stuff, and I didn't have a picture of what he was doing, and I was like, I've got to ask her for some pictures. So that's I think I emailed you and I asked, like, do you have pictures you can send me of like what you imagine him making? So I it totally opened me up to a whole other realm of glasswork I hadn't been exposed to yet. So I thought that was really cool. I really enjoyed that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, when you sent me that, I originally thought, because I had sketched in my head, or on paper too, of what I envisioned his pieces looking like. And then I thought, I'm not going to send her those. I'm going to send her like real artists.
Oh, I would love to see that. Oh my gosh, now you have to send it to me. I want to see that.
But yes, I had looked at tons online and just anywhere really, researched it, and gosh, it's amazing. It is amazing what can be created. And so I definitely but I also wanted to show the labor behind it, because I don't think, especially with some pieces of art, people don't recognize how long it takes or the effort that goes into it and the passion that goes into it, but just his physical, the physical demands on him as he's doing it. And for Caroline in the story to experience that too, so that she could kind of, I guess, fully grasp the creation process of it, not just the displaying aspect of it. And for Finn too, it's that other aspect of letting someone in.
Yeah.
And for him to be as a tough a shell as he is and was, that him allowing her to even touch his tools and to help him, I wanted that to be kind of the turning point in things for them. Like, he trusted her enough to let her in his shop and to actually make something and create something. And for Rory to obviously totally camp on that, like, what? You let her in there?
Yeah.
She makes vapes? And to be like, okay, something's definitely up with my brother,
Yeah.
So, oh man. Well, awesome. This was fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed doing this.
Yeah, I really like this too. All right.
All right, sounds awesome. Well, it's always good talking to you.
Yeah, good talking to you too. Have a good night.
See you later.
Bye-bye.